You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Hey, yo, Quantic, run them bands up. Hey, yo, Quantic, run them bands up.
What's good? What's good? Hit that like button for me, guys. We are getting this thing going. I want to talk a little bit about politics and political philosophy today. Don't mind if I get a little nerdy on you guys. Excuse me. There's an itch I'd like to scratch, if you don't mind.
Arrest him.
For what?
He's dead.
This video clip is actually pinned at the top of my my Twitter profile. If you click on my Twitter, my X page, I hate calling it X, but if you click on the top of my Twitter, that's the very first video that pops up. And my commentary on it is, I don't really get a lot of Black people who fancy themselves politically savvy, or, especially the pro-Black racially conscious types. I don't really hear a lot of raw political, philosophical discussions coming from these people. And that kind of troubles me in a way. I was watching something from Heather McDonald recently. She was talking about race grifters and maybe the end of the DEI hustle and all that. And one of the things she mentioned in this interview rather, was how basically all of our modern political philosophy, in one way or another, does stem back to the Europeans in one way or another, whether it's the Greeks or it's the Enlightenment. Our political philosophy pretty much comes from Europe. It is what it is, right? And I wonder if that's maybe the reason why the pro-Black crowd doesn't really get into political philosophy, because the Europeans have pretty much been at it for more than 1,000 years, and they've covered all of the relevant ground worth covering. I wonder. That's just me and my hypothesis. But like I said, I wanted to talk about politics and political philosophy tonight. So let's do that.
When it comes to the social elements of the state, the two major ideologies that philosophers focus on are conservatism and liberalism. Conservatism is associated with beliefs that a country or state should hold tradition and custom as the most important aspects of their society. Conservatives do not like the idea of social change unless it is absolutely necessary. Conservatism basically favours long-standing traditions of culture, religious beliefs, or national-defined beliefs.
I see.
Conservatism carries patriotism for the nation-state and believes that our belonging to a nation with a history of beliefs and culture brings us and the people in our nation closer together. Our national identity, our social structures, norms, values have been built up over thousands of years through many generations to shape us and make us who we are, and conservatism believes this should be preserved and protected.
Yes, I understand. However, in the last century or so, we've seen radical social changes across the Western world, the whole world in fact. As human beings, we're a creature that is always changing. We're learning, we're evolving, so of course there are going to be social changes, because
I actually disagree that as human beings, we are constantly changing. We're always in the process of learning and evolving. I mean, even the most liberal scientist and archaeologist, or whatever you would call it, they all agree that it has taken millions and millions of years of different steps of so-called evolution. So even in that framework, that doesn't signify constant change. Seems like we pretty much are what we are for an ungodly amount of time, and then maybe we were something a little bit better than that, right? Maybe, if you believe in that sort of thing. And so obviously conservatism is almost a natural position in that there is often very little reason to just simply change the way we've doing things, especially if the way we've been doing things is productive and effective. If it works, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's really the conservative principle. It's almost a natural life principle.
As we as people are always changing.
Okay, but conservatism isn't against change completely, but rather it believes this change should be a slow or gradual process. It could be referred to as organic change. Conservatives understand there is a social change, but would like to control it and ease it in piece by piece so as
Big time with the $5 super chat. He says, slavery enforced at gunpoint. Evil. The draft enforced at gunpoint. Evil. Racial school integration at gunpoint. Good. Thank you, big time, with the $5 super chat. And you're obviously ahead of the curve with the theme of that image. There's a particular reason why I chose that particular image as the thumbnail for tonight's show. And, you know, since you did kind of jump the gun a bit, I'll go ahead and raise the question. Right now, we're listening to a video about conservatism versus liberalism or whatever. And next, I want to play something for you about fascism. And it is my contention that conservatism and liberalism perhaps are sort of almost a normal state of affairs. Like there's always going to be people who are dreaming bigger, who want more, who dream the impossible, stuff like that. And it is in society's best interest to kind of control that and guide that even, right? Whereas fascism seems to, it's something that's been, it's a new creation. You know, conservatism is maybe old as man. Liberalism maybe goes back to, like, I don't know, the French Revolution or so. That would be like the 1600s, right? Fascism seems to be a reaction to the extremities of liberalism, which makes it almost an entirely new thing. It's almost like it's an aggressive type of conservatism. And so we're going to get to that point. But the question that you kind of jumped the gun on big time, and thank you for your support, by the way. I appreciate all your support, man. The question that I think you jumped the gun on is, who would be the fascist in this picture? Anyway, tuck that one in your hat. We'll come back to that. And I like the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Like I said earlier, we're going to get a little bit little wonky tonight. Please indulge me. We're going to have a bit of a philosophical, political discussion. We're doing poli-sci tonight, all right? We're doing poli-sci, none of the typical Negro babble. We're trying to understand the white man's political philosophy here tonight.
You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Hit that like button for me, guys. Support the show.
I need that money.
was to not disturb the wider web of society. It doesn't believe in radical change or any form of revolutionary change in a society.
Well, there has been radical change and revolutionary change in many parts of the world, and a lot of this has been beneficial. Conservatism is concerned with social culture, but there have been many cultures of oppression and subjugation around the world, and conservatives would argue that this still needs to be protected. It is because of this that I favour liberalism. Liberalism is based on the political philosophy centered around the individual. The individual should have as much personal freedom as possible, providing their freedom does not affect anyone else other than the individual. So for liberals, tradition and culture and custom are not important at all, and they see no value in upholding these. It is just down to what the individual wants, how the individual wishes to act or to dress or to live. It's individual wants, how the individual wishes to act or to dress or
That's a great image for us to stop on for a moment and talk about this idea of individual freedoms and how far that concept of individual freedom should go. And this is why I think about not only conservatism versus liberalism, but why not fascism? Let's think about it all, since it's all on the table. And conservatism would frown on a man dressing like this. Fascism would find ways to prevent this from happening, at least on a wide scale. You'll never totally stop everything, but this wouldn't happen in 1942 Germany, right? This guy could not exist in 1944 Germany. The question that liberalism can't answer and conservatism seems to rely on strictly religious argument for is, how does society benefit from this level of individual freedom? Why should we encourage such a thing? Why should we support such a thing? It's one thing for an individual to be odd and unique and weird and all that. It's another thing. It's a vastly different thing for the state to have pride parades.
to live. It's all about personal freedom and giving each person the most amount of freedom possible.
Interesting.
In the last century or so, liberalism has really taken over in the Western world and shaped our beliefs of toleration and respect for all human beings, no matter how different they are.
Yes, okay, but liberalism does run into its own problems. If too much emphasis is put on personal freedom, nation-states may find themselves in a situation where all their citizens are completely different, where there is no national culture or common beliefs. Too much differentiation can break down our sense of community.
Which is where we are right now in the American landscape. We are at a point of cultural infinite fracture. All of the affinity groups have internal affinity groups. Within the blacks, there's the colorism thing, there's the gay thing, there's classism even within Black America. There's the educated lames and the nerds, the men versus the women. All of the groups will infinitely break down to the point of systemic dysfunction. What then?
Togetherness, our sense of being one. We are then left with a nation of lots of individuals, but no unity or common beliefs or culture.
Yes, I see the argument.
Hey, it's Dan Zimmerman. Welcome to Illustrate to Educate. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support more simple and objective videos on topics that matter. What is fascism? In this video, we'll dive into everything you need to know about it. Fascism is a complex and mutable political ideology, but is typically defined as a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideology and movement, characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation and race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy.
Now, outside of the implication that fascism is inherently right-wing, I would argue fascism unto itself is politically neutral. It is neither left nor right wing. It is it's a practice, a tautology. It is its own set of values and applications. And given what you just heard, I'm going to run it back for you one more time. Given what you just heard about the definition of fascism, is it not fair to say that modern liberalism is effectively fascism? The global liberal world order that we all kind of operate under at this point is effectively fascist.
Illustrate to educate. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support more simple and objective videos on topics that matter. What is fascism? In this video, we'll dive into everything you need to know about it. Fascism is a complex and mutable political ideology, but is typically defined as a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political.
Okay, authoritarian, check. Liberalism, modern liberalism is definitely authoritarian. It's ultra-nationalist in the sense that it destroys national borders. It is super nationalist. Every nation is the nation. This is like, the spirit of global communism, right? Every nation is the nation. We are all the workers, what's it called? Workers of the world unite, right? This is the concept. So in a way, it's approaching that same
ideology and movement, characterized by a dictatorial leadership,
the European Union. And shout out to iHypocrite, by the way. Good to know you're here. Didn't even know you noticed me. I watch your stuff too, by the way. But yeah, shout out to iHypocrite in the chat. Anyway, where was I?
Centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural
militarism, autocracy, forcible suppression of the opposition. Donald Trump, before they even tried to shoot him, all they did was just arrest his cabinet and have all the people associated with him put through a series of legal troubles, Roger Stone and whatnot. I think even the My Pillow guy, everybody associated with Trump, great and small, they were under pressure. The January 6th protesters, obviously, we're hitting the definitions of fascism, but it's allegedly a right-wing phenomenon. Therefore, if I take an affinity to the right wing of fascism, I become a bad guy. But if you are proudly on the left wing of fascism, you are righteous people.
Social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation and race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. The word comes from the Italian fascio, meaning a bundle or a group, and is considered a term for a militant brotherhood. The word fasces means an axe tightly bound with sticks, an image that became a symbol of the fascist movement. The symbolism of fasces suggests strength through unity. A single rod is easily broken, while the bundle is difficult to break. Fascism came to prominence in the 1920s and 1930s in Europe. The most notorious examples of fascist governments have been Benito Mussolini's National Fascist Party in Italy from 1922 to 1943 and Adolf Hitler's National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, from 1933 to 1945. Other countries have also been ruled in the 20th century by fascist regimes, such as Francisco Franco in Spain and Juan Perón in Argentina. According to some definitions,
now, notice all of these countries that he mentioned were countries that were literally in the midst of communist overthrow. And so when I argue earlier that fascism kind of emerged as a more robust, aggressive form of conservatism, it was a reaction to the extremities of liberalism. Once liberalism had reached its final form, which is communism, essentially, we needed conservatism to reach its final form, which is fascism, right-wing nationalistic fascism.
Fascism rejects assertions that violence is inherently bad and views imperialism, political violence, and war as a means to national rejuvenation. Fascists often advocate for the establishment of a totalitarian one-party state and for a dirigible.
Is that not California? An authoritarian one-party state? Is that not California? Hell, that's probably parts of the Northeast too, like New Hampshire or something like that, Vermont maybe. Where's Bernie Sanders from?
Just economy with the principal goal of achieving autarky, national economic self-sufficiency through protectionist and economic interventionist policies. Fascism's extreme authoritarianism and nationalism often manifests as belief in racial purity or a master race, usually blended with some variant of racism or bigotry against a demonized other, such as what was seen with Jews during the Hitler era.
Now, here's a weird problem that at least this definition of fascism is touching on, right? The minority issue. And I don't know if fascism in and of itself is completely to blame for this alleged hostility toward the ethnic minority. Definitely the foreigner, right? Foreigner is one thing. And to the extent that fascism and ethnic nationalism are tied together, there may be some truth in that. However, as we just said earlier, communism apparently is the final form of liberalism. And it's always been a communist goal to exacerbate and to apply the natural ethnic tensions toward its own communist outcomes. And what winds up happening is something like the civil rights movement, actually not even the civil rights movement, but really the revolutionary period of the civil rights movement, like with the Panthers and stuff. You get this really hostile, aggressive, violent, criminal tied ethnic minority that is wrapped in the cloth of victimhood and oppression. And so from the media perspective, oh, these black people are like heroic freedom fighters and whatnot. But from the people who really have to deal with them every day, like they're just criminals who are hustling everybody. And this is kind of how liberalism or soft communism, socialism, however you want to frame it, this is how it's operated. And so fascism has sort of presented itself as just a strong block against all of the shenanigans. There would be no Panthers in the Reich.
Ideas such as these have motivated fascist regimes to commit genocides, massacres, forced sterilizations, mass killings, and forced deportations. Since the end of World War II in 1945, few parties have openly described themselves as fascists. The term is more often used derogatorily by political opponents. The descriptions of neo-fascists and post-fascists are sometimes employed to describe contemporary parties with ideologies similar to or rooted in 20th century fascist movements. Core fascist ideologies and goals similar to those of Hitler and Mussolini are still present in populist organizations today and continue to shape fascist movements in countries around the world, particularly where their leaders are, number one, someone who claims to speak for a whole nation or group, 2, is utterly unconcerned with the rights of others, and 3, is willing to use violence and whatever other means are necessary to achieve the goals he or she might have.
Now, obviously, the major concern of people, both on the left and right, and I talk about this all the time. SKC and I have had this long-running debate about how far is too far for the right wing. And I've always told him that we are so far left wing, too far isn't even a destination on the map yet. And what's really, really worrying people is what was just described, a right-wing figure that can actually harness enough of the voice for the people and forcefully implement this right-wing fascist authoritarian will, right? And why have we even done all this 40-minute preamble? Why are we talking about all this stuff so long? I want to kind of prep everybody for the next part of the conversation. And then there's another part beyond that. But let's get to Mr. James Lindsay and the woke right.
What is the woke right? For years, James Lindsay has been one of the most prolific writers, thinkers, and commentators on the rise of wokeness on the left, how it has infected academia, media, and other important institutions, how it leads to groupthink and conflicts with an ethos of individuality and liberty, how it overlaps with Marxist thinking. Lindsay's writings on this topic made him a hero to many on the Trump right. But in recent weeks, he's increasingly found himself at odds with some, not all, but some thinkers in Trumpian circles. Why? He says they're increasingly falling prey to identity politics themselves. He has termed this new identitarian trend as the woke right.
Now, I've been kind of on the fringes of this woke right conversation, trying to understand what it is about for a long time. And months ago, honestly, because it's been around for a while now, but months ago, I kind of realized the heart of the woke right criticism is essentially Israel. Really, that's really what it always boiled down to ultimately, was Israel. And as a matter of course, there is nobody who would be considered woke right who was also a fan of Israel. And once I kind of pulled away from all of the Lindsay subterfuge that he was engaging in online, that became crystal clear. Now, beyond that, there is an argument for an American identity that's kind of taking place right now. And this is where, you know, the white identity is tied into it. And I make room in my own argumentation that there is definitely a black identity woven into the American identity as well. But there isn't room for infinite identities in this American identity. We are a particular thing made up of a couple of particular things. And anyway, in my own estimation, the woke right argument is something along those lines. What is it to be an American? Who gets to speak for Americans? And what is it you want for America?
Now, this is an important topic in right-leaning social media right now, so I wanted to have a discussion about it with James Lindsay. James, welcome to Rising.
Hey, thank you, Robbie. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to have you with me. This is a big topic right now. I see amongst lots of people who have, been in right-leaning social media spheres and discussing a lot of these issues, discussing wokeness, and have been, sounding the alarm bells about wokeness for years and years and years. And you are really at the forefront of that. You're one of the most prolific people on social media I've ever encountered. Why don't you, describe for our viewers? Maybe we should start with what you've done on the wokeness front, and when you started noticing, what is it about wokeness that you see specifically, because I think the term itself might be confusing to people. What about wokeness you see pervading right of center circles?
Now, Lindsay has effectively destroyed his credibility with the majority of the hardline right. There are, kind of squishy right-wing people or whatever, people who are more mainstream right-leaning people. But anyone who's anywhere close to being far right or extreme right, or however you would imagine, Lindsay is persona non grata. And what's fascinating really about it is Lindsay was basically a right-wing hero maybe 2 years ago. I remember there was one famous thing that he really tried to recreate this to take down the woke right, and it didn't really land as hard. But there was a famous incident a couple of years ago where they submitted a lot of really BS left-wing philosophical papers to different universities, and these papers kind of got lauded and circulated around, and they kind of proved that it was all bull, and then they just were writing sweet nothings down as some kind of university level intellectualism. And everybody kind of had their moment and laughed at how goofy the left wing was. And now, after all of that credibility got built up, he blew it all in one shot by coming up with this woke right theory, essentially trying to call the right wing effectively like the left wing.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, but there's a ton there. I mean, since you asked about my background, I first started actually, I think, fighting woke in like 2013, like way before the vast majority of people were recognizing, again, this identity politics, victimhood narrative, et cetera, that we see on the left and characterize the left by now because it's totally taken it over. I did the grievance studies affair. I published a bunch of fake academic articles in prestigious academic journals in 2018 to expose the academic rot with woke literature in the academy. I wrote a book in 2020 called Cynical Theories to expose woke right at the right time. It turns out, by great luck, it came out right after George Floyd died, so it ended up selling a ton of copies and getting in a ton of hands, opening a ton of eyes. which was very lucky, explaining critical race theory, post-colonial theory, feminism, and so on, all these woke theories. And then I've fought this, I've researched this full time ever since. I've done nothing pretty much professionally except either fly around the world and speak about it or research and write. Like you said, I'm prolific on social media. I am. It's insane, actually. But I also have written probably a few million words and produced over 3,000 interviews and I don't know, probably over 1,000 hours of lectures that I've given trying to explain that woke derives from Marxist thinking, which I've traced back through copious amounts of their own literature and the older literature like Marx.
Now, again, solid work he's done over the years, meticulously connecting classical wokeness, classical Marxism to modern wokeness, right?
Thing is this identity politics, victim narrative, conspiracy theory about a system of power that excludes people like us from the full fruits of society, which is what woke is. You wake up to believing that there's a critical interpretation of reality that's being hidden from you. That's what it literally means. Critical consciousness is the technical word. Well, that can apply to anybody, anywhere, who decides that they adopt a victim-oriented, it's actually called a slave morality about the way.
SKC asked a question. A shout out to the Rumble chat. SKC asked, who is the best of the right-wing thinkers / influencers? Lindsay, Kirk, Yarvin, or Rufo? I'm not really familiar with Kirk. I haven't really listened to much of Yarvin. I'm only slightly even familiar with the name Yarvin. I know of the name Yarvin, but I'm not familiar with the work at all. Lindsay and Rufo, I know well. Both Lindsay and Rufo are a little bit left-leaning, in my opinion. I'm not really, they're not, I don't know how conservative they are. And then honestly, like I said, I'm kind of exploring the limits of the right wing. So they're very left-wing from where I stand. So I don't really, listen, if I say a name like Fuentes, don't be upset with me for throwing that name in the hat.
Society works, that there's an organized system, not necessarily individuals or a conspiracy, but an organized system that keeps people like them away from opportunity and power. The woke can adopt this on the left using things like systemic racism or heteronormativity or classism, as in classical Marxism. They can adopt it on the right instead by taking up an idea that there's a post-war consensus to drive true conservatives out, or that classical liberalism is intrinsically and characteristically.
Well, is there not a post-war consensus, though? And does the post-war consensus have very basic, easy to identify markers? A lot of you guys probably just watched the video I dropped earlier today, just before I did this live stream about straight lives matter. The post-war consensus definitely doesn't like the idea of white culture or white people, doesn't really like the idea of straight culture or straight people, doesn't really like the idea of capitalism or meritocracy even, right? There are definite markers that have taken over the world since World War II.
Flawed to always turn into Marxism over time, both of which are very prominent narratives on this so-called woke right.
That's exactly what it is, and I've been pushing back on that too. You know, we are living through a political moment now where Trump has been tremendously successful. Republican Party under his leadership has been tremendously successful. The right holds political power right now. They're obsessed with cultural power, so they're always still complaining that, you know, Hollywood is still filled with a bunch of liberals. Okay, fine. Actual political power right now is pretty concentrated on the right to greatest extent in my lifetime there's probably ever been. So now's a moment.
Political power at the top is vaguely right wing. It's not even right wing. It's on the right side, like on the right hand side of politics. Right now, you have the ball, but it is not in the hands of the right wing by any means. And even more importantly, the social power that kind of is downstream from politics, well, upstream, however you frame it, the part of the river that comes first in the flow, the social power is definitely in the hands of the far left. Just today or yesterday, there was a raid in like Minnesota. I think there was like a drug raid, like the feds are raiding some kind of drug operation, and all the people thought it was an ICE raid, and so they pretty much staged a little rebellion against the feds, trying to interfere with the Fed raid, thinking it was like some immigrants or something like that. Like the social energy is definitely on the left wing, the far left.
Moment to actually do something. And then the things I would want to do as a classical liberal are, yes, what government departments can we cut? How can we restore more power to state and local actors? How can we put more decision-making hands in families, parents on education issues? All that kind of good, classically liberal, libertarian, conservative stuff. And then what I hear, and a lot of people on the right want to do that. You know, we're not totally at odds. But then some of the people go, but right now we control these political institutions, so we can set up commissions and committees and grow bureaucracies and make things and do it our way and force this kind of vision that we have. I'm like, but I thought the whole point was to end some of these systems and to liberate people. And they're like, it's a very Lord of the Rings kind of, Council of Rivendell. Wait, no, we have the ring, we can use it. And actually a lot of these people love the Lord of the Rings and know exactly where that kind of thinking leads. But is it really an admiration for Marxists?
What does he mean by that little throwaway line? A lot of these people love the Lord of the Rings and where that kind of thinking leads. What does that mean? Smart guy with the glasses
And
there.
actually a lot of these people love the Lord of the Rings and know exactly where that kind of thinking leads.
What does that mean? Should we not go on a life-ending quest, a life-threatening quest? Should we not face peril and mortal danger to destroy the One Ring? Should we not sacrifice it all for God and glory and Rohan? What does that mean? I keep thinking about the weird problem that the Democrats have trying to attract men. And too many of the left-leaning people, like there's a culture of the left that can't fathom why you would sacrifice it all to destroy the One Ring. Whether you were Frodo or Aragorn, they can't imagine why anybody would do such a thing. And that's a deep, deep break from the millennia year long, the millions of years of heroic action that have risen man up from nothing. Because now all of a sudden you don't know why you should sacrifice it all for glory. That's a deep, deep left-wing problem.
But is it really an admiration for Marxist leftism or wokeness? I do see that admiration to some extent. They go, oh, yeah, they love rules for radicals and all that. They're like, oh, Gramsci was onto things.
You know what's so funny? Red Illusion says Yarvin had a whole allegory of hobbits versus elves. And earlier, SKC asked me a question. It kind of put me on the spot a little bit about my knowledge of right-wing thinkers. And, I can't even claim to be that well-versed in the right-wing thought. My approach to the right wing has largely been revolt from the left. I deeply understand where a lot of left-wing thought comes from. Like earlier, I think yesterday, SKC, you sent me a video of some professor explaining the link between pederasty and a lot of the LGBT thinkers that laid the groundwork for the new culture that we have right now. And it is in studying the left that I find myself more and more comfortable with the furthest reaches of the right. And that's maybe a weird way to approach it, but that's definitely how I wound up where I am. It's the more I learn about the left, the more everything on the right wing just sounds right.
Are you seeing an intellectual influence?
There is an intellectual influence. And of course, like you said, Lord of the Rings is the right metaphor. Boromir and just about everybody else at some point or another coveted the ring and the power that it conferred so that they might be able to fight the Dark Lord Sauron with its power, using its own tactics, so to speak, or its own power or energy back against it. But of course, the theme of the Lord of the Rings is that the ring is wrought in evil and it cannot be used to do good. And so you'll just set yourself up, if you even win, as a new Dark Lord on a new Dark Tower. So the idea is, and that's like the perfect metaphor for what we're dealing with, but there is this intellectual undercurrent to it where, yeah, they're saying things, and this includes intellectuals like Patrick Deneen, who's written about this a lot. This includes people on the internet in the kind of pop circuit like Mike Cernovich and Carl Benjamin, who are talking about how both the Marxists and, well, Marx himself was an
Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad. James Lindsay and Sargon got like a little friendly beef running right now because of this woke right thing. Because even a guy like Sargon, his position is essentially England should be for the English, that is effectively a woke right position as far as James Lindsay is concerned.
excellent writer and had great critiques of liberalism. That comes from Cernovich, it comes from Carl Benjamin, and so on. This has been a big theme. They're reclaiming the critical theorist, but and like you said, Gramsci has been completely embraced by a segment of the right. Gramsci's idea of infiltrating the long march into the institutions. The left did it to us, so we get to do it back to them, and we're going to install our view of the world because they've accepted the leftist woke framing. Nothing is value neutral, so we have to therefore assert our values over everybody else through power. And so they're embracing these critical theorists, the neo-Marxists, that is, and Marx himself, but not his specific conclusions. That's the argument. He made good critiques, and he had a really good understanding of what was going on, which is false, by the way, in both cases. But his solutions are wrong. So we need to use these different, national conservative solutions instead, or some such.
Now, SKC says the left covets the ring, but they don't believe that they can be corrupted. Hence, destroying the ring is unfathomable. Now, this is the philosophical break between reality and the Lord of the Rings universe and the narrative of that universe, right? The ring, the one ring, is a physical symbol of ultimate power, all right? Unlimited power. And we all know Darth Sidious and the whole Star Wars storyline and whatnot. And actually, Star Wars was another, the OG storyline of Star Wars was another metaphor for what unlimited power does. Like literally the dark side, because to really have unlimited power, you have to embrace not only the light, but then the dark side. And it corrupts you naturally, it physically. And the break between things like that and the real world practical application is that somebody has to wear the ring of power. In the real world of men, someone has to wear the ring of power. Metaphorically or practically, this is always true for men. Someone has to wear the ring. And within the burden of wearing the ring comes the corruption of unlimited power. This is something that's inescapable. It's baked into the human condition. And this is why we have things like religion to help mitigate these concepts. But ultimately, someone has to wear the ring. There has to be a guy not only capable of wearing the ring, but willing to do it.
Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
And again, this is where we are in terms of breaking from the literature, right? In the world of men, in the real world, somebody's always in charge. Now, that being established, should he lean toward the left or should he lean toward the right?
Yeah, I think people without as deep a familiarity with Marx as you have are often, they think Marx is just socialism, or Marx is just, well, wants a socialist distribution of labor. Marx had specific theories that did not come to pass, about like predictive theories, right? That he thought capitalism was the last stage before an inevitable worker-led communist revolution that was going to be accelerated and was going to take place within his lifetime, right? It's not different from the kind of like a religious cult in 17th century America predicting the end of the world is coming on this day, and then it doesn't come to pass. And then he has these disciples who try to, rehabilitate his theory and say, well, it didn't come to pass for XYZ reasons, but it still has some validity to it. I'm like, no, it didn't happen. You got to admit you were wrong at some point. So why would people on the right be worshiping this thing? Well, he got a lot of things right. The critiques were right. The critiques were all about a prediction, a like world-ending prediction that did not happen.
So they think he's right because power. Basically, they saw that Marxism was able to exert tremendous power over the world. It's, in my opinion, through the woke on the left, threatened even America and the Western free nations.
Real quick, and I've been pointing this out when I do talk about political philosophy and the social issues of America. Always add power to the equation. If you can't really understand the goals and the motivation of the thing, add the concept of power. Who's in charge? Who benefits? Cui bono?
Very seriously, in that we're still in the grips of this tremendous problem. Woke on the left is not dead. It's entrenching and kind of waiting and biding its time. But they see that it worked to get the left power, and it's power that they covet, whether that's because they are ambitious themselves, whether because many of them are openly Machiavellian, for example, so they want to espouse that, deceitful lust for power, because power is all that matters, or realpolitik is all that matters in their opinion. And some of them, I think it's out of fear and desperation. We're so close to the brink. Desperate times call for desperate measures is the, kind of old slang from the movie. But what I hear, actually, some segments of the woke right say, and we haven't talked about the ones who believe that it's Jewish power, of course, which is rampant and rife on social media. But these people are out there, and the slang now that I see on the internet.
I told you earlier at the start of this Lindsay piece that it always boils down to that particular thing. And to be fair, when you get to the far right, when you get to the people that populate the limits of the far right, they definitely discuss the issue. They're the only people who really discuss the issue.
Is Weimar problems require Weimar solutions, which is a direct invocation of needing to re-engage the Nazi experiment, as I have come to call it, as I study the fascists and the National Socialists.
Well, I mean, without calling it, the N-word experiment, were they that wrong, though? Considering what they were dealing with, considering the actual on the ground, if anybody understands the social nature and also the economic oppression of the Weimar era, were they really that bad? I mean, like, because now that America is actually engaging with the very same things that actually gave rise to a guy like that, shout out to Uncle H. But now that America is engaging and flirting with these very things, why is it so unfathomable that people who can compare, people with access to the internet, would look at it and say, well, you know what? If that stuff was going on in my house too, I'd put a couple of foots in a couple of asses, is all I'm saying.
Which, of course, is a tremendous mistake. And so I think it's power. It's like, for example, today I'm seeing on social media a campaign from some of these characters. For example, Andrew Isker, who is a recent guest on Tucker Carlson, is out saying something to the effect of, I wish we could abolish the Congress and the judiciary and make Trump what amounts to a Carl Schmittian, although he didn't use the term, unbound executive. Carl Schmitt was the crown jurist of the Third Reich and wrote the legal basis for the total state for the Nazi regime in 1933. And so now it's, let's get rid of the Congress because it's not doing what we want. Let's get rid of the judiciary because it's not doing what we want. Let's just have an unbound to all-powerful executive, which is the exact opposite of the American program. You see them talk about wanting to have new constitutional thinking to get rid of our current constitution and replace it. And I see this as very little different from the woke stuff we've seen on the left for the last 10 years.
Let's talk about the anti-Semitic element of it. I admit that I am always a little bit...
Everybody wants to talk about that part of it. Why is it always about that part? How come it can't be deeper than that? Like, I am more than just my big hat, okay? I am more than just a guy who hates little hats, okay? And for that matter, little hats aren't that bad. They're stylish.
Skeptical when mainstream figures or media figures say that, oh, there's this secret undercurrent of racism or or bigotry or whatever it is on the right. They're always saying that. They're relying on organizations that compile hate crime statistics in misleading ways, that have financial incentives always to pretend that racism is getting worse or Nazi affiliation is getting worse or whatever it is. They're always, saying that. So many examples of misrepresentation. So I am skeptical when that is presented to me. However, when someone like Rod Dreher, writing in the Free Press this week, this is someone very much on the right, I would say even more of the nationalist kind of right, has some affinity for what Hungary is doing. I very much respect him as a writer and thinker. I have a lot of disagreements with him. He says that he is worried that there's a rising trend of anti-Semitism, and then he got into a little bit of a disagreement about whether we're supposed to call that the woke right or call it something else. I'm not convinced woke right is necessarily the right term or captures enough of what I'm seeing, but what I am seeing exists. I am worried now, and of course it's absolutely present on the left as well. The anti-Semitism there has never even gone away, frankly, but I am seeing...
And this is a common, and people on the right really hate the unfairness of it all, but it's a very common attack. Because I don't want to see any dollar of mine support the war effort in that country doesn't make me anti-Semitic. I just don't want to be a part of what you guys got going on here. And for that matter, I don't want any of your supporters looking at me crazy if I do half the stuff you guys do.
Seeing some anti-Semitism in this young online segment of the right that maybe you can write it off as trolling or whatever it is, the deliberate irony, kind of frog meme people to some extent. But I think there is something a little bit real there. I don't quite know where it's coming from. How do we push back against it?
I am not entirely sure where it's coming from either. There are a lot of factors. There's pretty strong evidence that it's got massive bot support.
Yeah, it's not coming from anywhere in particular. It's literally self-manifesting anti-Semitism. It just sprouts out of the ether. How do you stop something that just sprouts from the ether?
Including from foreign actors. So it's being amplified artificially in social media. You cannot go on X, or to a degree YouTube, and to a lesser degree Instagram, which still kind of clamps down on it, without kind of being flooded with not clear how genuous they are, I guess, if that's a word.
And shout out to Elon Musk, by the way. I'm not his biggest supporter ever because, he's going to be the guy that brings Skynet online. But until then, shout out to Elon for at least holding free speech somewhat relatively open on his platform. Because there's nothing like Twitter, by the way. You can't go on Facebook. I don't even go on Facebook unless I'm going on like Marketplace for something. Instagram, just like yesterday, I almost downloaded Instagram because somebody sent me a video I wanted to watch. And I halfway got through the Instagram download process, and I'm still halfway through it. I haven't finalized all the last steps. Maybe one day I'm going to figure it out, or not figure it out, but just feel like it. But I don't even want to get on to other platforms, man. Everybody talks crazy on X, and that's where I want to be.
There are lots of you don't know if it's real. I'm trying to figure out a good way to say it. You don't know if it's real or if it's astroturf or if it's a psyops from a weird actor abroad or whatever. But the anti-Semitism, and I mean legitimately, the conspiracy theory that the Jews control everything and therefore need to be dealt with as such is rampant, and it's coming from a lot of and being amplified by a lot of very big conservative influencers and influencers who aren't conservative but have a lot of traction with this kind of anti-surveillance state, anti-government. Like, for example, Ian Carroll is not a conservative, but he's very popular with conservatives, and he pushes that Israel is behind everything. There is, of course, a distinction between being anti-Israel as a state, anti-Zionism as a project, anti-Jewish as a kind of bigotry, and anti-Semitism as a conspiracy theory. Those things can be disambiguated. But this is real. And like you, I have every reason for skepticism.
Why do I have to be a supporter of all those things, though? Like, that's what I don't understand about the criticism. You can't make me love you.
I have a hate profile of my person on the Southern Poverty Law Center website that has had material consequences for me in several domains. So I am very aware that there's this bogus use of the term in this application because it's happening to me constantly. But on the other hand, this is something new that people haven't seen in quite a long time. And it's like Rod Dreher said, again, I have similar feelings to you as to Rod. This is alarming and concerning. And Rod doesn't even spend much time online. Online, it's overwhelming and kind of terrifying. So there's something there. Where it's coming from, I don't know. What we can do to push back is the same as always. We have to expose it. We have to draw a firm line that this is not acceptable. And that we have to take a stand. Frankly, I've put out a podcast recently called Never Again Is Now because I think it's that alarming.
Yeah. And I like you said, I want to separate some of these things because I absolutely, disagree with other people on the right about foreign policy. We should absolutely be able to debate how involved the U.S. is in the Middle East, how supportive of a specific Israeli government. That is not, it is wrong to associate that always and in every case with anti-Semitism. That's like saying, you're racist for disagreeing with Black Lives Matter or you're whatever, you're anti-LGBT.
You say that, but that's the actual energy, though. I mean, you say that as if it doesn't actually play out that way, though. And that very reality in and of itself creates a backlash.
For, not wanting women competing in men's sport, all that whole kind of deadly sphere. So it's not about that. It's not about the issues. We should absolutely have a robust debate about the issues. And I am more on the side of the kinds of non-interventionist foreign policy that has come about in the Trump era. But we're talking about real, actual contempt, not for the government even. You can always have contempt of government. Contempt of government is great. I'm all for it. But contempt of people for an identity-based reason that I absolutely thought we had confined to the far reaches of the left, but I'm seeing show up on the right.
Yeah, actually, again, I have to agree with you. The Southern Poverty Law Center has me listed as an anti-government general, and so I'm completely in agreement. But there has to be that both discernment between these different types of, on one hand, criticism of a state, and in fact, a particular government within a particular state. Even if you want to be pro or anti-Zionist, that's a particular project, right? So you can be pro or anti that. There's a debate that you could have there that's not necessarily wading into a global conspiracy theory of Jewish power that links into the post-war consensus that we'll never have fascism again. Therefore, we have to suppress the true right, which is what.
But isn't that literally what's going on, though? Isn't that literally the spirit of the day? Isn't that what never again actually boils down to? Because, that one German guy, because he did a thing, you guys can't have a country that's all yours now, right? That's kind of the way it works at this point. And once people start to notice it and put it together like that, I mean, can you blame them for not wanting it to be that way?
What we're actually hearing from these people that I'm calling the woke right. I can show you where they've written this pretty explicitly, and this is the model that they're using. But their conspiracy theory ultimately comes down to, like I said, there's this classically liberal program that devolves into communism. It has been invigorated since World War II, which now needs to be reinvestigated. Everything in the 20th century we've heard is a lie, is a statement that Jack Posobiec made on social media the other day.
And you know what? I think that's a great place to take us to the next part of the conversation. We need to rethink everything from the 20th century. Everything we ever learned in school was a lie. I remember years ago, I actually had this book. I brought it. You know, you walk through like New York City every now and then. There's like a guy with a book table with a bunch of mostly pro-black books. That's where I was anyway. And I bought this book one time called Lies My Teacher Told Me. Fascinating book. Fascinating stuff. And as it turns out, even if you read like from the left-wing perspective, what's that book by a guy named, like, I think his name is Zimmerman too, but it's like a People's History of America, something like that. Like, there are a lot of just little known facts about how the country came to be and the different people in America's history and whatnot. But the majority of the right-leaning kind of facts just don't get discussed. And I want to talk about something else that came to my attention recently. And Christopher Rufo actually put out a post earlier that I just have to dig into this now. Let's talk about the civil rights movement for a minute. Let's talk about the civil rights era for a moment. Howard Zinn, thank you. That was the name, Howard Zinn. But no, let's talk about the civil rights era. Christopher Rufo, I had to snip this earlier. I should have snipped the other one, but we're going to look at this now. He says, my main argument to the repeal the Civil Rights Act faction is that the last time it was polled, the CRA had near universal public support. They can make the argument for repeal, but they also have to outline a plausible method for achieving it, right? So he's attacking the people who attack the very intellectual structure of the civil rights movement. And I find this fascinating. Let's talk about it for a minute. Now, in this tweet, he says, interested to hear the strongest arguments from the repeal the Civil Rights Act crowd. Drop them in the comments. And you know what? Actually, let me do something real quick. If you guys are listening over on the main chat, shout out to all the longtime subscribers who follow me on my main channel. If you guys have been listening over in the main chat, I'm going to need you to click that link that I've been posting in the chat, because we're going to shut this one down, and I'm going to need everybody to just come over to the new channel, and we are going to finish this show out over here. But thank you guys for watching. Hit that link in the chat, and we're going to pick this one up on the main channel. A shout out to everybody still listening on Rumble, by the way. And we might drop a link later on tonight. I don't know. Actually, not. Probably not. We're going to wrap this up soon. But I want to talk about the comments about repealing the Civil Rights Act. Straight up from Homab says, hi there. The strongest argument is that we didn't effing want it. And if we don't effing want it, it's not the government's effing business to tell us what to effing do. Quote, but the outcomes of, quote, yeah, F your outcomes. We don't want someone else's outcomes. We want our own. You know, I think the outcomes are actually, that line about outcomes are about the whole disparate impact idea that really reigns in American jurisprudence right now. They will literally treat an issue as a discriminatory civil rights issue if they can prove that it harms like one group more than the others, you know, the blacks, basically. The aristocratic utensil, he says, it destroyed the right to association. Next. DEI for white guys says, DEI policies comply with the CRA. Getting rid of the CRA won't change anything about the systemic anti-straight white Christian male discrimination, but it will allow us to freely associate and disassociate from those who hate us so we can form our own communities and institutions that promote our interests, right? So a lot of people are making comments in this similar vein, right? Freedom of association, basically. White guys. Aaron McIntyre, the CRA is a blank check for government power, a Soviet-level piece of social engineering that has proven a moderate disaster for the community it was meant to help and has resulted in legal discrimination against the majority population. Free association is a constitutional right, and if conservatives were serious about not believing the leftist propaganda that America is a racist nation, then they would trust citizens to make these decisions. There is nothing conservative about massive, far-reaching legal codes and bureaucratic structures meant to monitor the population for thought crime. And that seems to be the direction that liberalism is taking us, though. And SKC, you know what? Would you like the link, SKC? I will throw you the link real quick. Because I think this civil rights bit is a little bit interesting. SKC, if you want to come up, please take the link if you have a minute. Jeremy Kaufman, if you have to use violence to make people associate with one another, then you're the bad guy. Now, we had a super chat, honestly, the one super chat today, and shout out to Big Time for that early super chat. He says, slavery enforced at gunpoint, evil. The draft enforced at gunpoint, evil. Racial school integration at gunpoint, good. Now, let me bring up the picture that I started out with. Who are the fascists in this picture, and why are they the good guys? If fascism is bad, is this not fascism? And if this is fascism, why are they the good guys? Just wondering here, like, this is an interesting point. And so when we get to the whole civil rights question, shout out to Big Time again with the $10 super chat. As soon as I mentioned you, right on time. He says, it's fascinating how Trump can remove federal funding from Harvard due to small hat hate. But in 2017, Evergreen State University taught white people to be a human shield meatbags during Brett Weinstein. And you know what? It's funny. There's a guy I follow. What's his name? But he actually has a YouTube channel, and I follow him on Twitter. And he was covering that. He actually like blew up. His whole YouTube channel started out during the Evergreen scandal. He's a middle-aged white guy with glasses. Somebody help me out if you know that guy who started out with the Evergreen thing. But yeah, I covered that whole thing where Evergreen went to hell basically, and it was like a sign of what was to come with like the Floyd stuff and all and then just how wokeness was going to take over. But yeah, shout out to Big Time for the super chat, and do me a favor, guys. Smash that like button. Be like Big Time, y'all. Smash that super chat button for me. And also, drop $1 in the hat. We could open up the panel a little bit and talk about the civil rights era, y'all.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry. You not like Hulk angry. Hulk no like fighting girls.
Anyway, more comments on the Civil Rights Act. Not so friendly lawyer. It destroys the fundamental right to freedom of association. You don't need anything more than that. Index read, why would we want the government to legislate preference? If somebody doesn't like me because I'm black, they shouldn't be forced to say anything otherwise. Why is this such a hard concept to understand? Christian Hines, the CRA empowers our enemies, and that's bad because our enemies are evil. Taft, don't target the CRA. Target the expansive way that it is currently interpreted. Position it as bureaucracy and government expansion, polluting and otherwise noble law. Advocate a return to law's original intentions. Come on, Christopher, you're the strategy guy. Read the signs. We're tired of the white man's burden. You know what? Oh, look at this picture. I'm stealing this picture, by the way. Oh, I got to steal this one. Let me bookmark that for later. That is a crazy picture of the white man's burden right there. Hit the like button for the white man's burden. You know what? You guys can't even see the picture. Let me show you the picture real quick. This is crazy. Nasty work here. Nasty work. They should hang this up in the Louvre. This needs to be in the Museum of Modern Art. Call it the white man's burden. Big Time with another foul ball says small hats cannot remove the race card from white people. They know it would be a slippery slope toward the anti-Semitic card being next. You know what's interesting about that is Israel is effectively the white people of that region, and so they're being treated as like white supremacy and all that crazy stuff. Hell of an image. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to save that one for later. Every metric of American life has gotten worse while also importing 100 million foreigners in the process. Why would anyone be in favor of that? Can't even get a job at your beloved Panda Express if you don't know Spanish thanks to this. The Civil Rights Act is just forced servitude of white people. Hunter Ash, it's not going to be plausible for a while. The point is not for major figures in the Republican Party to push it for right now. The point is for those of us y'all can plausibly distance yourselves from to make the case to the public and move that number. Most people don't even really know what the CRA is. It's a mythological entity. Let's take a moment right here. Oh, you know, what was that Carolyn Borishenko? Oh, look, she's a little bit of a lefty. Here, I'll give you a real reason. I'll give you a real one reason or two. Employment at will means I get to fire whoever I want for any reason I want for no reason at all. If I exercise this option on someone protected by the Civil Rights Act, I might have to spend time in court writing a claim I did it because they were X, Y, B, Z. It's my company. I should be able to hire and fire whoever I want. I should also be allowed to not hire someone for whatever reason I want. A trans person is more likely to be dealing with severe mental illness. I'm sorry, I don't want that. A woman is more likely to be annoying and create problems in social situations at work, including bringing in DEI training to people. I don't want that. And even if I don't have a good reason, it's still my company. I'm not going to read the rest of that. She said a lot, but I want to skip ahead to something else here. Just for a little quick moment of love. Theatrical levity.
Everybody talking about niggers want this, niggers need that. This whole thing started because what niggers are demanding. What about white folks? What about what we want?
You already got everything you want.
No, we don't. And now the niggers in this town trying to take away everything we got left. They don't want us to play Dixie at our schools.
I don't know what this movie is, but knowing what I know about the way everything has progressed ever since World War II, I look at movies like this. I look at this entire era with an open mind now. I no longer instantly believe that this white guy is automatically the bad guy.
That's our song. Angry when we fly.
Now, make no mistake, when you watch a movie like this, and I don't even know what this movie in particular is, but generally that character is written in a way that he either does something that makes him over the top unforgivable, or something happens to make him love the black people in a way that he would have never otherwise loved them. Because, you know, Hollywood, they got to make you think weird
By the
stuff.
Confederate flag at ball games.
And why should one of our boys have to play ball under that flag?
That flag is our proud Southern history.
Well, it might be your proud Southern history, CP, but it sure as hell ain't ours.
Integrated schools have blacks-only assemblies, blacks-only Martin Luther King, this, that. That ain't my history. You want to talk about schools? Let's talk about schools, Mr. Riddick. My sons don't have it easy in school. Their teachers ain't even teaching them half the time, and you want to throw them together with a bunch of niggers.
I'll sit with your brother Ellis.
Did that nigga just call me brother?
Yeah.
Yes, that nigga did just call you brother. Hell of a time to be alive, isn't it, folks? The link is in the chat, by the way. Want to talk about the civil rights era and all that's come from it. And by extension, I suppose we're talking about the white man's burden, if you can believe that.
Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break.
I'll sit with your brother Ellis.
Did that nigga just call me brother?
You have no idea what real black folk go through. And you don't deserve a seat. He don't deserve that chair. He don't. Calling that man his brother.
It's important to understand that Black spaces help combat the effects of racism by providing a space where we can come together and build a unified community. Here's why Black-only spaces matter. We've always fought for our place in a society that consistently marginalizes and oppresses us. Mainstream spaces frequently fail to provide the safety, representation, and empowerment needed to thrive. That's why areas created exclusively for Black people are vital to our health and well-being. It's important to understand that Black spaces help combat the effects of racism by providing a space where we can come together and build a unified community. Here's why Black-only spaces matter. We've always fought for our place in a society that consistently marginalizes and oppresses us. Mainstream spaces frequently fail to provide the safety, representation, and empowerment needed to thrive. That's why areas created exclusively for Black people are vital to our health and well-being.
Actually segregating whites and blacks, and I actually told them straight up, like, honestly, I would love that. Now, they looked at me like I was crazy, and they almost spit up their almond milk, and I think they thought that maybe I was saying that out of hatred, but it really isn't about hatred. Here's the thing. I'm not talking about their version of segregation. See, I'm talking about our version of righteous separation, spiritual sovereignty, and Black sufficiency. See, the truth of it is that integration was never about freedom. It was finesse. It was a system's way of saying, let's stop them from succeeding independently so we can profit from their brilliance directly. It was
one of the interesting byproducts of the civil rights era is that while white people have been forced effectively at gunpoint to desegregate their professional and even personal lives, Black people have been encouraged to maintain a level of self-segregation that is basically celebrated. And it does kind of just smack of a kind of liberal fascist hypocrisy. Like, clearly this wasn't about equality if you actually believe in what people call reverse discrimination, right? But anyway, let me not pontificate too much. I've been talking a lot for a while. Shout out to a True Hype, and we got the Midwest request up here. We got a little panel going on. Like the video, guys. We are talking about woke civil rights tonight. True Hype, you came up first. Any comments so far?
Man, like, Last I checked, man, and I think I posted on the link of this video, or whatever, like on Twitter or X. I was like, yo, does voluntary association not work anymore? I mean, that's not a new term or new thing. And then like what? Like form a clubhouse, man. You good? Hell, man. Like there's Knights
What happened to the
Pythagoras.
boy? What happened to the Boy Scouts? Hype.
Oh man.
What
Like,
happened to men's clubs? Hype.
Hey, true.
man,
It'll become voluntary once it's popular.
no,
Well,
but
even then, but
yeah,
when
but
you say voluntary association, I don't know that that's actually a thing right now.
I mean, it is for most of America. Hey, because look at Scott Adams. He decided to voluntarily not associate with y'all.
Well, but look what happened to Scott Adams. Like they tried to kill Dilbert.
It's
I mean,
it's
like,
it's the principle. It's the organized minority will rule over the unorganized majority.
what's funny? What's funny though, that's actually worked out for the people they tried to cancel as of late. So what they did is they eliminated the deals that he did have on the books. So like now he doesn't have those exclusive deals. They paid him the money, and now Dilbert is able to, what I'm saying, he's able to franchise it out more than he was beforehand because he had all those newspapers he had to do.
Well, that was a different. That's a different thing. He was able to work it.
He's able to. Well, the reason why he was able to like succeed even past that is because he had a different mindset from like the orthodoxy that he was living under. Because he's an old dude, right? So like you can't really say that like he was like on the internet and he was picking this up. No, he was kind of gathering information from. He was looking for the knowledge. The knowledge wasn't looking for him. It wasn't trying to sell him something. He was looking for it. And this is like a different paradigm now that we're into now. We're just sort of like, if you're trying to give somebody information, is different from them looking for it. Like the people are looking for the source. They're looking for something authentic. They're looking for anything that doesn't look like, like Colbert. Or like those type of people that look a little bit too polished, so they want a little bit of authenticity, and that's what like a lot of like I keep trying to tell people like there is going to be a flavor for whatever. Like you may be left wing, but you don't got this type of flavor of left wing, and it'll be the same thing for the right wing or for whatever wing you want to like. There'll be 31 flavors of your ideology that you could choose from. And like
Well,
I'm seeing it,
it'll filter itself out. Like you can't have 31 flavors. That has to whittle itself down. But I want to
eventually,
real quick anyway. Let me
power
stop you right there.
will funnel itself in. But right now we're in this period where there is this big like kind of like before like when the internet came out. And like there was a lot of like people that you thought were never gonna go away, like AOL and stuff like that. Like, and now they're just like, or Facebook, they just completely, or like or face, like all these places they just completely like left away. Like the Kai Cenats of today, like it may be 2 years later you will never see them again. I just wanted to say that real quick. Like this is a very interesting time that we're living in right now.
I want to get back to the clip real quick, and then shout out to Scott Adams, because here's the question, and we're talking about like civil rights and all that. Why is Scott Adams wrong for wanting to segregate himself, but black people are absolutely within our rights to want to segregate?
Because there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low black population.
It's about control. And so I want us to be very clear about this. We were never separate but equal. So that's a lie. We were separate and excelling. We had our own schools. We had our own banks. We had our own businesses. And baby, we were thriving. Black Wall Street, they burned it. Rosewood, they bombed it. Wilmington, they overthrew it. Why? Because
I don't know if that's 100% true. Like, I'm not saying that the individual incidents didn't happen. Like, yeah, those incidents happened, and we're not going to debate the veracity of each incident, but I don't know if it's true that Black success was literally firebombed out of existence. I think it was more integration that killed it.
Yes. Hey, Hood. The name of that movie was The Best of Enemies.
Yeah. I think Freeman's Journal typed it in the chat. I might look that up one night.
Yeah,
Hey, look, and real quick, like with AI, and especially with like people making like AI like different, IRL, fantasy fictions and shit like that. Like you could see people like they're gonna like dig deeper in their delusions and shit, right? And they're like, and now it's just like it could be literally like the stupidity could be literally cemented in like multi generations. So this is the crazy part about it. Like, and how are we gonna be able to do that without kneecapping ourselves? I do not know.
Didn't I
do
say
not know.
yesterday AI is gonna make niggas even dumber than ever, bro?
Yeah, it's gonna make them more militant too, and that's the thing. Like, you could literally
Yeah.
have like the drone war, like the Clone Wars and shit like that. It's just like you don't even like. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, without even getting into actual military application, I'm just talking about the psychological implications of having digital AI, like having your
fucking
own
terrible.
digital friend to reinforce your psychological retardation. Oh,
The metadata
anyway, Dirty
that it
Folks,
collects
man.
on you.
Dirty Folks. Before we get back to the clip, shout out to Dirty
Yeah.
Folks, man. What's good?
This is so many, like, the clothes, bro. Like, everything she's saying is dumb. Hey, look, I'm old enough to be a young man when all that happened, right? My dad, to this day, my dad swears to God he didn't want his house. My mama bought it. And I kind of believe him because he autistic. The Black women fought hard to live next to white people, which created white flight, because white people was like, I don't want to live next to you, nigger. But there was no single Black man like, yo, I'm gonna move into an all-white neighborhood so they could burn a cross in my yard. It was always Black women that pushed integration. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, integration was wrong. Bitch, it was you. When I was talking to my grandparents, born in 1919 and 1926 respectively, they were born during the Great Depression.
Hey,
By the time
gentlemen,
that-
can we try to keep the profanity to the minimum? I'm trying to keep this stream up with the green dollar sign.
I got you, bro. I don't want you to go yellow. When my grandparents born in the Great Depression as children, and their comeuppance was they came up at World War II. That's how they got on their feet, right? Civil rights was a thing that they let their wives do, the little bra burners, because civil rights wasn't even what men called it. They called it the Double V program, right? Victory abroad, victory at home, right? When women and rainbow men found a pastor or two to be the orator. Look at all them old pictures. If you juxtapose a black and white civil rights picture next to a colored Black Lives Matter picture, you'll see the same amount of four Black men with a bunch of fat Black chicks and a bunch of gay white dudes. The movement never changed. It was never a man movement. But I came up here to say this real quick. Only Black men can turn this around, because only Black men don't have to worry about including girls and Boy Scouts and call it scouting, because Black men are the minority of the minority. There's even less Black men than Black women in Black. But Black men won't do it because they want to include their girl.
Well, Dirty Folks, one thing I think I'll disagree with you on is that the civil rights movement, compared to, say, like BLM, the civil rights movement started out as the men's movement. Not a man's movement, but there was a lot of men in it. I'm not going to say it was like a patriarchal thing, but there's a bunch of men at the front. Now it's basically women. Like, they literally say, we march for y'all. Every time one of y'all gets shot, we out there marching. The civil rights today, it's literally women, gays, and felons, like you like to say. So I do think there has been a big shift in that level.
But that's the rebrand, bro.
Dirty. I want to tell all y'all this right now, because, like, this is something that's been bothering me mentally, like, because, like, in my head, right, me growing up, like, as a Mexican American, like, in the United States, like, I'm looking around, like, I'm not looking at any prominent Mexican Americans that actually, like, fucking really, like
like held a candle next to like a Tyson, a Michael, or Jordan. You know what I mean? Like I've never seen anything like that. So like I was always looking, and then I was just sort of like, well, you know, even when as I got older, I was looking at it like, oh well, you know, black dudes they're just like kind of like they're ultra masculine. Like they could cuck the white people, they can't cuck the blacks. They can't cuck them.
Well,
And then like, and then I
how
started
much
like,
of that do you think?
well,
How much
is
of
my
that do you think
realization.
was like media?
Well, yeah, it was in the 90s. Like that's, but then I wasn't really like I wasn't really looking into like black culture like that, like I am right now, because I find it fascinating. Like because a lot of my heroes were like black. That's what I'm saying. So it was just sort of like I'm looking at it and I'm just sort of like, well, when did they start putting on dresses and shit like that? Like
Oh
when did
no,
they start doing it? I never like,
they've
and
been
then
doing
I
that for a
never
while.
actually like, I
They've been
never
doing that for a
connected.
while, man. Like
No, I
like
know, but like
Wesley
it was
Snipes
just
did
kind of like, whoa,
212
whoa,
for a
and then
blade.
That's
well,
not fair though, bro.
it's not, because like I still feel like there was still a lot of solid people, but there was like a
That's not what I was
wave
saying. That's
of
not what
promotion
Let me jump in
that
real quick.
drowned out like a lot of the stuff that I really like did like, and then I seen it kind of get drowned out and like kind of dumbified and everything like that, because I still there's still a part of me that like I'm not like, I don't think of myself as racist. Like I'm like
If
90s
you
racist.
judge a group by their media
I'm like 90s
persona,
racist. Like
I'm not
I
even
make
sure
jokes
what
off
racist.
observations,
Bro,
but like I have no hate.
I'm not even totally sure what racist actually means anymore. So let's set that
Dude,
aside for a moment.
I swear,
Let's just set that aside
that's where
for a
I'm at.
moment, because I want to shout out Big Time with the $10 super chat a minute ago. He says Alex Karp is the owner of Palantir. He claims to have helped stop the rise of the far right in Europe. The EU canceled the nationalist president the people chose in Romania. What will association fix? You're raising a bigger issue. We were just talking about AI a minute ago. Joe Blow, you left a comment in the back chat. And what's going on? I don't know if we ever spoke before, Joe.
Yeah,
but what's going on? Welcome to the show.
It's Bandit.
Oh, okay. What's up, Bandit? All right.
Yeah,
You were saying something about AI and
put a
finance.
generic-
Explain that a little bit.
So AI basically, so AI controls when you invest. So say there's a massive sell, what it does is it switches everybody's strategies from, we'll just say, a aggressive to a moderate strategy, which causes more sell. So basically, if you have more than a 5% run on the stock market, it causes like massive selling, because AI, there's no human element. Everything is just done by computers. Once you hit these targets, it forces a sell-off, and then more trades happen, and it gets exponentially worse. That's why you're seeing these giant swings in the market, because they're hitting targets, and when they hit targets, then they do massive sells.
But we're 10 years away from Brando owning the account.
It's not Brando, but I'm just saying, like, it's to the point now where like there's no human running the machine. It's literally
I already know what that's going to lead to in 10 years.
It's
That's what I'm
scary
saying. Like
that, like you could easily do runs on
Yeah.
on the stock market. You can easily, like, because it doesn't take much. It just takes, honestly, it just takes one big seller. Like, say Elon decided to sell his crap, he could, if he wanted to, he could put the whole world's economy into a free fall because he sells the stock.
No, it's gonna take somebody switch off.
Well, I don't want to turn
back on.
this into. I don't want to turn this into too much of a financial.
Yeah, I'm
debate,
just
'cause
saying
we
how
were talking about
scary
something totally out. Yeah, I know it is scary when you think about like AI doing minute to minute, second by second trades and whatnot.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the civil rights bit of it all.
We were doing too well without them, and they couldn't handle that. And so that's the truth. They didn't really want segregation gone. They wanted control. This is why we know that integration was just repackage of chains. When we were separate, we actually were building and excelling. And when they saw that we could excel without them, then it was like, oh no, we got to take control and make sure that their labor is profiting us. So right around that time, they rolled out this.
You know what's interesting about listening to her? Both Keisha and a lot of white people, let's say the right-leaning white people, Keisha and the right both believe that each other is holding them back. Like the right wing is looking at Keisha like we'd be on the moon without you, and Keisha's looking at the right wing like nigga, I'll be on the moon without you, and it's hilarious when you think about it.
Keisha said I would be on the moon, and she would take credit like we. Because everything she's talking about was men. And the fact that anytime I listen to a black woman say that anything domestic is slave labor, like taking care of your kids or feeding a meal like you don't eat every day yourself. Look, the reason they fought, name me a black chick. I bet she don't cook for herself. I know she go to after school programs and daycares and everything. She don't raise her own kids. Everything that is slave labor, that's mammy work. Didn't blame obesity on slavery. Oh, we got fat in 2025 because they wouldn't sleep with a fat woman in 1825. So you 200 years before obesity, chick. Like,
they had collarbones in the 90s, man. Sorry.
I know they did. I'm saying what the lies they tell. They blame obesity on slavery.
But one of the biggest issues though is like the white man's ice is colder. I can point to that in Loving versus Virginia. It wasn't black dudes being like, "Oh, I want to," you know what I'm saying? I want to marry down this chick. Look who forced that kind of stuff.
Well, here's the thing. What AI is going to do to replace, who's going to be more affected, men or women?
Women.
Yeah, so you're seeing you're seeing the giant pushback right now. Why do we have such a big pushback? Because we all see what's coming. And to be honest with you, like, the more you can look at, like, at least in my eyes, I could be wrong, but if you look at like racism in itself, thinking that you're enslaved, that keeps it going on, and you can't grow past it. It's like you're permanently handicapped because anytime you see a little slight, you're just, oh, it's racism. I have this giant get out of jail free thing, and it works until it doesn't work. Once the fatigue hits,
anyway.
Yeah, once the fatigue hits.
Bandit, I got a question for you. For you.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, like, this is I may be taking people out of the conversation, but this is something that honestly been kind of like, I don't know how to exactly put it into words, but the concept has been spinning around in my head. But so, like, all right. So, like, if you were to be taken away from your like environment, right? Like, let's say you were to be put in a different place, right? You as being white, I guess let's say we would put you in China or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, how would you hold on to your identity, like in an alien and sophisticated culture, and keeping the narrative?
There is no white identity.
And keeping the narrative like in yourself that's true, and then like you weren't, like how would you work that in your head?
It's easy. There is no white identity. It's what I can do with my own two hands. No one's going to be coming for me. No one's going to be helping me. It's my own two hands to do what I have to do. If I can't put up or shut up, I'm done, because no one's going to give a shit.
All right. So like this is that's level one to that.
Wait. Hold on. Before you go, Midwest request. Like, why would you assume that he would have to hold on to his identity or even show that to the outside culture? It's the predominant culture. If you go to China,
if I go to China, I'm just I'm not going to change Chinese culture.
It's a logic question, like you would ask an AI. It's a logic question. Like, I'm not asking for any emotional response or moral.
No, it's not emotional. Actually, you would take emotion out of it.
It would be an instinctual thing.
Yeah, but you would do it.
You would instinctually see that everything was alien to you.
No, but you would do it like in Rome, though. You know what I'm saying? You would do like everybody else.
You're being idealistic. You're being idealistic because
I'm not.
Let me answer, because I have two options. I either have
instinctually you would know that they would look different from you.
So what?
They would.
Yeah, but it's not about looks. It's
Everybody
about
looks different, bro. Everybody fashion changes.
It's not
Nose
about looks,
change.
but I'm just saying like it's an alien. It's alien to you. I'm not saying that
It's
you
not.
could even
The
speak
only
It's
the
thing
not.
same
Why?
alien.
language.
No.
Do you want me
The
to
only
answer the
thing.
question?
The only
You
thing
asked me a
alien is
question. I'm going to
language.
answer it.
Go
You
ahead.
you're in an alien culture that's different from your own. You have two options. You either push ahead and assimilate, or you push ahead and you go upriver and you do what you got to do. Either
Thank you.
way, paths are going to open for you and paths are going to close. So your thing is you got to make a choice, decide what you're going to do, and man up and make a decision, and
You,
then
you
live
know
with
what's
that
weird?
decision.
You know
The
what's
That's
weird?
it.
biggest issue that keeps on happening with a lot of people is not realizing that if you don't assimilate in most cultures, you die. And sometimes that includes like, hey, getting stoned. You know what I'm saying?
No, I just wanted to know how Rhodesia came about. Like, I just wanted to hear it from him.
Huh? Mm.
I wanted to hear the logical train.
Rhodesia came about because people had money and pistols, and they wanted cobalt and diamonds. Here's the
Well, they
thing,
were
bro.
not.
Look, here's the thing. When you go out of town, no matter where you go, as long as you can understand the language, you can assimilate. You can slide in. You know what I mean? You'll learn the way they dress. You'll learn.
Hold on, dirty, please allow me for a moment, because I was listening in the background because I had to do something real quick, and I gotta let you guys have it for a minute. But I'm listening, and that whole weird, it wasn't a weird question. I like the nature of the question once it kind of got established. And then you ended it off by saying, I wanted to know how you did Rhodesia. What the hell, bro?
Nothing at all. That's why I say cobalt and diamonds, bro. Nothing. We went from
I
China to
a little
Rhodesia.
bit.
This
I had to
this
throw
is
him off a
Freudian
little bit.
explore. We went from
I
China
felt
to
like I
Rhodesia.
had
Hey,
to.
you did all that.
I felt like I was losing
You
a
did
little
all
bit.
of
I
that
don't
just
know.
to, you was like, can you teach me how to colonize? Like, what was that about, bro? That was so
Yes,
funny. I just had to
exactly.
jump in for a minute. That was crazy.
Sorry, I got booted.
I apologize for that last part, but yeah, I felt like I was losing. I had to fuck. I don't know.
Everybody
I felt
that
like I was
moved,
fighting a losing battle.
you know what's crazy, bro?
Right.
Everybody who moves
That was
how they
funny.
move at the crib when they go out of town ends up dead or in jail.
Yep.
Whether you're a white person riding your bike through Iraq thinking it's sweet, dead or in jail. Whether you're a fat black chick going anywhere in the world, dead or in jail. Whether you go to China and decide, man, you're gonna do your own thing, you definitely going to jail in China. Everybody assimilates. When I go out of town, nobody knows I'm from Chicago unless I ask for a pop. I had to learn how to say soda when I go across the Mississippi.
Yeah,
Right?
do you guys learn your history with Russia? Like everybody assimilated, but it ended up being code words and speaking in tongues to get what you wanted to accomplish. You can live a life where you have to look like you're basically conforming, but you're not. Right?
Yeah.
That's how you do it. You can't just go in and say,
Not
I
only
can't
that,
just
you know
go in
what?
into an alien culture and go in and say, you know what, you're gonna do what I want. They're gonna just laugh at me or they're gonna kill me. If you either have to change it from within when you gain power, or you just have to suck it up because you're a man and no one gives a shit, and you just got to put your head down and do some work. That's your options.
You know what's crazy about the Russians? The Russians were giving an alphabet because somebody decided, a pope decided that they should have their own language and their own like alphabet, so they decided just to give them one. That's fucking wild.
These are random facts for Jeopardy, but I like that.
That is fucking wild. Cyrillic? Look up Cyrillic and where it came from. It came from a Christian fucking monk that decided they just should have their own fucking language because they're
Hey,
not like
let's
they're not like
have
the
let's have
Europeans.
bombs, man. Let's have
That's
bombs.
wild.
You know what you remind me of, bro? You remind me of my dad. You remind me of my dad, bro. I ain't
I
gonna lie.
mean, here's a prime example for you. And if you want the white version of this, no one gave a shit about the Irish. The Irish, everybody hated the freaking Irish. So what did the Irish do to change? They became policemen and firemen, and that little ability allowed them to take leadership roles in the community and build clout for them, and that's how they took power. So you want to know how you want to change a culture, that's how you do it. You find something like a school board or something, and if you want to change, you start small and you build momentum. That's how you do it. Is it going to be easy? No. Are you going to have a lot of pushback? Yes. But that's how it's done. And history has shown in America that's how people do changes. They start small, they start with their community, and they work their way up. and it's not a one generational thing. It takes multiple generations to do it.
Yeah. So you better get a plan and get people on board and be able to communicate that through generations.
Yeah.
With guns.
That's how you do it.
So you will have to come with guns, because it's get down and lay down. You lay down, you stay down. Once you let a person negotiate your rules, you're gonna get her talking about everything her mama did for her was wrong, and you need to come back and save her.
Or you just say, why are you saving her? Why don't we ask that question? Why
No. I don't have to worry about why I'm saving her, because I would choke her. Look,
well, hold on,
here's
real quick. I wanted to jump in about that thing about the Irish, though, and we're talking about like the whole Civil Rights Amendment. And my question, I guess, is like, should we reconsider even the Civil Rights Amendment? Because what I think was happening was Black folk, in a roundabout way, were trying to legislate respect. And I think when you mentioned the Irish joining like the police and the fire department, that's really what it was. They earned a level of respect. And it wasn't like, oh, you just have to respect me because I say so. It's no, we have a thing that means something. We protect it. We run it. And therefore, you have to respect us.
And hold on. What would you call it?
With the Civil Rights Amendment, Black folk tried to gain respect through political power instead of practical power, and that's, I think, a weakness.
Yeah. Well, the problem they're facing now is
Hood called it legislated. Hold on, real quick, Bandit. Hood called it legislative respect. So you have to legislate your respect.
No, that's what it was.
That sounds fucking gay. That sounds
not
fucking
gay.
retarded and gay.
You have to assert your authority.
So many F-bombs, please, gentlemen. Let's keep it clean. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but that is egregious, and I'm highly offended.
It's what happens. It's what girls do because they can't beat up boys. Look, I told you my grandparents said they didn't want civil rights. Look,
well, that's what I was about.
This
to
is
say.
what happened.
We're already in that area right now. It's like you have DEI and the civil rights. They are two different polarizing viewpoints. You cannot have DEI and the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So the question becomes...
Well, the 1964 Civil Rights Act was overturned by the 1968 Civil Rights Act that said women are minorities. But even before you get there, and I got to give Gorilla P credit for this. He said, man, around the civil rights, around the time, the 1950s, everybody got to choose what they wanted to be. Because Black men were already known for things, right? We already had agriculture and architecture down, right? They said, man, everybody wanted to be something. Say that the Jays took entertainment and education. The Irish took police and firemen. The Italians took legislation and the union. He said they asked the Blacks, what do y'all want? Oh, we just want a woman. And they said, cool, we'll get the Mexicans your agriculture and your architecture. You can have a woman, you can be a minstrel.
Well, this gives you a golden opportunity. Where do you want to be? You guys have an open slate. Be whatever you want to be.
I agree with that. I agree with you. I'm just saying
you guys are not pigeonholed into an area. You guys can be whatever you want because you can write your own path right now.
I got you, Coach Carter.
And the ultimate responsibility becomes the ultimate freedom. So you have the freedom to be whatever you want, but at the cost of there is no path. You got to make the path of your own.
Well, there's always a path to duplicate, but I got what you're saying, Coach Carter. What I'm saying is we're talking about the civil rights. Civil rights also was connected to free love. So a bunch of dudes who should never have had kids had access to girls who should never choose their own man. So all that was going on at the same time, and that's how you get Black woman as God and all that. And it became a real. That's why I said they asked Blacks what they wanted. Like, I just want a girl. Everybody else wanted to be the union leader or whatever the case may be.
But people got in charge of certain other people that didn't have a plan. And what did the good book say? So they the people without a plan shall perish, man. You see the community dying on the vine right now, man. And then but they want some cleanup men to come and fix it. They want you dirty to be a mentor to like 300 kids.
Right, and then air me out. That's the whole thing. They want me to raise their kids, give them all the credit, do it for free. I don't even get a child support check, right? And then if I have something to say, everybody got to delete me and then start to look. It's not.
The other problem you guys, for the most part, have is
the community, the communitag, basically telling you got to be this certain way, and if not, we're going to ostracize you. We're going to make it damn near impossible for you to be the better person that you want to try to be.
No, that's. I mean, y'all got it all. Y'all got it
holding
all a
you
little bit
back.
kind of twisted.
How is it? How is it?
Not
No, it's
not
a little
really.
bit twisted.
It's
Not
holding you
really.
back.
No, because yeah, it's not even like that. No, because if you don't have any self respect, and then you're not gonna treat other people with respect either way. Like if you hate yourself, then yeah, you're gonna end up like you're gonna start projecting that shit outward.
But how you
It's
get?
the same way. Like,
Have you built people up before? How do you build someone up? What's the easiest way?
I mean,
The easiest way to building someone
you
up is giving them a task that they never thought that they can do, and guide them through that so they can build confidence. That's how you build. That's how you build ego. That's how you build self-respect. You
Yeah,
you give them
but to the
you give them
productive.
you
Oh,
give them
my
an
bad.
impossible task that they thought was impossible, and you build them up, and then you also give them a regimented schedule so they know that everything that they do matters, and you give them structure. You give people building blocks to build character and structure. That's how you build people up.
And then Bandit is 100% right. What happens is if you're productive and to be productive, you cannot think like a lot of these people, right? And some people, I guess they lightning strikes in some cases where they get productive results, but they still have like either survivor's guilt or some kind of whatever, like where they gotta go back, and they gotta give back, and they gotta represent, they gotta do all this other stuff. But it's like
well,
if you're productive.
how about the concept of negative like aura or negative like achievement? Like, you know what I mean? Like there is an idea that you have like that it's a negative force that's like pulling away from you, and it could be like negative propaganda or something like that, right?
Well, use that to your advantage. Take that
I am
negative
trying
and
to
flip it
like,
to a
well, I'm trying
positive.
to like, hold up, I'm trying to like fish this idea out of my head,
Mhm.
but it's like it's like negative motivation. So it's pushing you away from your goals, right? 'Cause that's what I see like a lot of
Yeah, but that
the
only goes so far though. Like in
I
the
know it
human
does. Like,
psyche,
yeah,
it only has so much.
eventually you would either, you know, you'll self detonate, or you will figure out that that's a bunch of bullshit. But a lot of people don't. But it's a negative
Well,
motivator.
they do find out. It's called life. Life's gonna give you shit, and if you either have two options, you either crumble with life, or you face it in the face and say "fuck you." Sorry,
100%.
you say "f this," and I'm going to make this not represent who I am. I'm going to overcome this.
But
Now
like the concept, you do understand the
you can't
concept, right?
teach intestinal fortitude. You have to build someone up. You need to build it up over time. It's not like you can't tell someone that never learned how to do something to be a master at something. It takes one building block at a time. That's why people think that like motivation and you can just improve someone in like a weekend. No, it takes constant effort. It takes growing someone over time, being their rock, trying to be their mentor. The only way you bring in someone up is you got to take someone
I guess
underneath your
I
wing.
I guess I guess to try to put a bow on it and shit. Like now that I'm
Mhm.
thinking about it, like it would be more of like, well, they're motivating you into like locking yourself into an ideology. They're like literally giving you. They're telling you to pull up the ladders and close the windows and lock the doors.
Well, is that a
Wait.
choice? Wait.
Who's
Is that a
telling you that?
choice?
No,
If
no, no. I'm
some,
saying the idea of negative motivation
that's still
or
a
like
choice. You got
no,
to make
no. But I'm saying there, you already have the foundation.
Mhm.
They're just motivating. You already have the narrative. They're just giving you the motivation
Well,
to
the
do
thing,
it.
everything comes down to choice. You either follow that path or you make the path your own. And if you're going to go down, if you're making negative decisions, eventually the negative decisions are going to bite you in the ass. The
Well, yeah, and
more you make positive,
I'm not saying that's something for me. It's just something like it's behaviors that I've seen in the wild.
well, that's what I'm saying. You have two options. You have if someone's negative in your life, you either change them or abort them, meaning you get away from them. They're either going to be a toxic addition to your life that's going to bring you down, or you got to step up and bring them up. Those are your two options. You either be the person that motivates and brings someone up to your level, and then you try to find someone that's higher than you and they bring you up, or you just say, this person will never change. This person is going to keep me at this level. I need to improve, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. Those are your choices. That's
And
it.
there's something else too that I've noticed too that like I don't think a lot of people talked about that is kind of like with AI and like with the inner with the disassociation and the what do you got the parasocial relationships that people have with people online. Like these people are not going to be able to make up their own minds. So once the AI starts digging into their metadata and like starts like their brain's gonna be fucking easier to pick than faulty locks. It's gonna be
Yeah,
fucking
yeah, but we dealt with that. We dealt with that in the last couple of years, though. I mean, like, do we see all the people that just followed just cause, and they do that right now, no matter what the issue is?
Well, the thing is, here's a metaphor for you. If you are a kid and candy tastes good and you keep eating candy, you're eventually going to rot your teeth out if you don't brush your teeth. So if you're taking the easy stuff in life, eventually it's going to bite you in the butt. You learn this as you become an adult. The best things in life is the stuff that's hard, and you can look back at your life and say, I accomplished something. If I keep on cheating, I'm only cheating myself. You're going to learn that lesson either the easy way or the hard way. Or the
I'm
other
gonna play
option
some
would
more of this
be,
clip.
yeah.
Go finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Oh, I'm just getting at is, as a man, there's only two options. You either move ahead or you cheat. And if you cheat, eventually that's going to bite you in the ass down the road. So the only way we can build character is what you do in situations that are tough. You either going to man up or you're going to take the easy route. And anytime you take the easy route, it's going to always bite you in the ass every single time.
I want to get back to this clip now.
This whole standardized testing, ACT and SAT. Y'all remember that? They created this IQ ranking to measure their norms, not our brilliance. And then we were said we were behind when we really weren't. We were just building our own lane, not asking for theirs. See, I don't know about you all, but I'm kind of tired of the lies. It's very exhausting, just the lies that continue to be promoted. And I want to talk about the melanin, because this whole thing that we're not smart enough, that we're not bright enough, is simply just a lie. And so, all this testing that they're doing, and I have kids in school, and they're made to feel that they cannot achieve. And I have to remind them about their actual superpower, melanin. See, not just your skin tone, but in your brain, specifically neuromelanin, that rich dark pigment found in areas like the substantia nigra, with
Substantia nigra?
Melanin's in your brain now?
I need somebody to give me clarification on substantia nigra. This is a whole new Negro term I haven't even heard of yet. We might have to do a show about this. Melanin part 2.
As far as I'm concerned, or not concerned, but as far as I know, the only difference or whatever is absorption, and a lot of that was a adaptation thing. Is one of the reasons why you have the different skin tones all over the world. There's not really a difference, right?
Hey, we got Bernardo on the panel, bro. Anything to add to this substantia nigra thing?
Every day you learn something new. I will tell you that.
Don't you?
How everybody doing tonight?
Good, bro. Good, man.
We cool.
How you doing, dirty folks? Guy who never returns my messages on Twitter.
Dirty dropped off the panel a minute ago.
Oh,
He's not
man.
even there right now. You missed him.
Yeah, but we good out here.
All right, so where you want me to go at? You tell me where to start.
Anywhere you like, bro. We were actually mostly talking about civil rights and all that.
You want me to tell you a thought that I've been having here lately, witnessing everything that didn't happen over the past decade, and I need for you to hear me out, and let's have a discussion about it. We all know the stories about, and I'm doing this in air quotes, about how the evil whites destroyed the black communities that were built up, right? But something I've been wondering is, after the slaves were emancipated, did they just peacefully walk off the plantation and go about their way? Or did they behave like the people in South Africa?
Well, you're actually getting to like the birth of a nation. That whole thing.
Right.
Like, what was the president, Wilson or something, that like
Yeah, it
played it
was
at the White House?
Yeah, it was Woodrow.
Now, history, like the way we get taught history, they would like
Right.
us to believe that that was pure just racial propaganda. And I mean, propaganda is what it is, but was it completely false? And I think you're probably more right than we like to acknowledge. Because, all right, can you imagine setting a bunch of slaves free
Exactly.
is almost equivalent to setting prisoners free.
Exactly.
Some beg for slavery, though.
And some people beg to go back to jail.
Well, not only that, like there's also like like they didn't know how to read, so it's just like how the fuck, like that's fucking cruel. Like you prevented
Bro,
them
bro,
to
bro,
learn
listen,
how to.
man. I'm about
All
to
right, all
kick
right,
you
all
off
right, all
the
right, all right,
ship. You gotta stop cursing like a sailor.
all right, all right. I apologize. All right.
Nah, go ahead, you saying something?
Yeah. So like they were forbidden. It was forbidden for them. I'll use my big languages, my big words, I guess.
That's what we're trying to do here, man. Lack of profanity forces you to expand your vocabulary.
Yeah, I know. I just the herd conservative, like the label just kind of gets my mind in the gutter. But all right, so like it was forbidden for them to learn how to read. Like so, like how are you gonna put them where they're not in a position to like actually administer even like their 40 acres? Like they weren't even supposed they weren't even supposed to know how to administrate or even work the like that's the whole thing that I have a whole problem with, like even immigration, like illegal immigration, right? Like you're just gonna hide them, like you're not gonna teach them the language, you're not gonna teach them how to get their papers right, like they're not gonna learn,
Well,
like you just
that actually did happen though. The Freedmen's Bureau.
Yeah.
Like there were significant efforts made to like, socialize the Negro.
And then when they went to the north, like you know what I mean, like they were already like you had like the I wouldn't want to say like the sophisticated blacks, but like they were the
You didn't even have to go to the north, bro. Reconstruction was a Negro golden age. Like this
Right.
is when you had your first black senators and then representatives and whatnot.
And not
Yeah,
only that, like
but Hood, when them niggas got free from slavery, they came to the north and found out the white man was still sticking into the finest black bras, and they still went crazy. Even Negro leaders, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna pass the mic. Sorry about that.
no, I could feel that too, because I could also understand too that they weren't like the culture clash from the north and the south, like blacks, like I could only imagine, like, because I've seen a little bit of the clip, right? That was a little like snapshot that Hood showed us, where they were just sort of like like it was just like kind of like I was like, oh shit, like this isn't something that that we're just kind of like discovering now, that they're like there's ghetto and then there's like the higher, like, well, look, I don't even want to say like elite blacks, but I'm just saying like the more sophisticated blacks. Like this thing has been going on for a long time, like longer than I've even thought. I just thought that it was just something that I just kind of like stumbled on, and I just thought it was always like that. But I'm like, it may have always been like that. I don't know.
So
It's just kind of like,
shout out to Bandit in the back chat. He's actually giving us some background. He says the substantia nigra is a midbrain structure, part of the basal ganglia, that plays a crucial role in movement control and reward pathways. It's divided into two main regions, the pars compacta and the pars reticulata, each with distinct functions and neurotransmitter systems. The SN containing dopaminergic neurons is a key component of the nigrostriatal pathway. All these Negro-related medical terms I have never heard of. This is what happens when you study the melanin.
and I'll say this too, like, and I've thought about this a lot, like, Frederick Douglass wasn't a miracle motherfucker. Like, there was a bunch of them like him.
There we go again. Slow down.
Yeah.
I know, but here's the thing though. I think Anton earlier made a video about there was a girl, because he always comments on TikTok videos. Some girl was saying how the black elites have kind of failed the common black folk. And Anton was doing a video from the point of view like you shouldn't rely on the elites and yada yada yada. And I'm not really going to argue against that, but I will say though, I think there is a certain space for that.
The problem is, I think I think the problem and like what it is that like I think that there's a lot of like I think, and this is me like digging a little bit, like I may be reaching, but like African culture is more like it's more I guess it's like a lot of Mesoamerican is more like it's out through word of mouth, right? So
Well,
you got a lot of these parables, right? So it is a lot of it isn't written down.
Well,
So
no,
like,
yeah, that's part of it. But let me tell you where I was going to go with it, and I was going to make a really concise point. I think the concept of noblesse oblige, in particular, like the idea of like the wise noble king, it's not completely unique to like Christian culture, but it really is a bedrock of Christian culture, right? Meaning that as the godly Christian king, I serve the people, broadly speaking, as much as the individual people would serve me as the king, right? So there's the idea that meaning because I sit up here on this position of leadership, I have a duty to the people below me. I don't really know that that's really playing out with like the black elite or even in America right now, broadly speaking. But I think that is a principle that kind of does hold some weight.
So, Mr. Conservative, Mr. Hood Conservative, are you saying that the community is black feudalism at this point? Is that what you're trying to basically say?
I don't know that I don't know that black feudalism is even as developed as you make it sound, but that may be the close approximation.
All right, so
if you think about how like black cities are run with like the little government, democrat feudalism is kind of a way you can look at it. Yeah,
That's a good way of looking at it.
all right, so let me tell you this real quick because I know where like the Mesoamerican civilization.
Every time you talk, you stumble out an F-bomb. Keep it clean for me.
All right. So this is how I understand how the Mesoamerican civilization failed and got conquered by the Spaniards. It was one specific thing that the Mesoamericans did not do, even all of North America didn't do. And it's a very specific thing. And when somebody told it to me, it kind of like it burned me up because I'm just like, why couldn't they or why wouldn't they or the domestication of animals? That's what Africa didn't do. That's what North America didn't do. And that's what Mesoamerica didn't do. And I will tell you exactly why that didn't happen. Because they were all worshiping spirits. They weren't worshiping a higher God, because in all the Abrahamic religions that they domesticated animals and they sacrificed animals and everything like that, they were taught that they had to sacrifice them, so they had to raise them. In Mesoamerica, they were sacrificing humans.
Well, yeah.
So they never.
Okay, you got a couple different things working.
No. I know what I'm saying. I know what you're saying.
Put it this way. Let me make my point.
Okay.
Let me make my point.
Okay. I'm getting a little bit too excited.
All I'm saying is, yeah, I'm sure I'm trying to talk too. All I'm saying is though, I think when you talk about like the animal thing, animal husbandry is a culture unto itself, right? Alongside of like, patriarchal cultures and all that. And these two ideas kind of grew up together. Like when you look at the sky father god kind of cultures, they are already pastoral farming type of cultures. It goes hand in hand. And when it comes to the when it comes to like South America and Mesopotamia and all that, one, I don't know how many animals they could have domesticated, but they definitely did have it. But deeper than that, I think there has to be, like you were saying, the religion of it. There has to be a religious impetus to it. So you're talking about them like sacrificing people. Their culture really didn't have any room for domesticating animals the way like these other cultures did. So you have to have that imported and taught to you at that point.
With the whole sheep herders and you having your flock, it's a whole parable in itself. You have to do things outside of yourself. The aspects of minds, because I kept trying to like justify it, like, you know, what if they never actually bought Christianity to Mexico? You know how fucking horrific that would be if they just showed up and there was like fucking my bad. If they were
every time you start talking,
like Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. But if there was like
this is literally
aspects,
why the Aztecs went to South America to civilize them, because you got every time you open your mouth, somebody has to die. You see what I mean? This is why they have that meme with the Christians coming to South America and the guys are like literally in the
there's
middle of the
there's still a little
sacrifice.
bit of that conflict going on inside of me.
And the
There's still a little bit of
conquistadors are like,
Spaniards,
listen,
a little Mayan
sacrifice
going
has
in
to
there.
stop. No, but that's like we're kind of getting well past the whole conversation now. But like the idea, like we talk about civil rights, but the word civil kind of is a shortened version of civilization, right? You civilize, and so the idea of civil rights, I guess, is your access to operate within civilized society, right? Now, here's the problem of civil rights: it does not automatically denote a responsibility on the individual.
I mean, the way I'm looking at it, it's more of a civil contract between the state, the community, and the individual. So in order to have a civilization, you have to honestly give up some of your freedom to follow certain rules. So under a civil contract, in a sense, you're looking at it as, I want safeguards. So that's your civil liberties or your civil rights. Those are the safeguards that if I'm going to give up all the ultimate freedom of living on my own and the ultimate responsibility of not dying by someone else's hands, I'm going to want some reassurances, and that's your civil liberties.
Well, I'm not arguing against that, but I guess the point I was trying to sort of flush out here is that when you look at like civil rights, especially with, you know, Americans' civil rights history and all that, there is no concept of responsibility. So Kennedy was famous for saying, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, right? So he's putting a responsibility of the individual toward the country, whereas the issue where civil rights made the country completely responsible for every individual.
How about this idea? Like, do you think that the United States decided to become Jesus Christ as a nation and try to save the whole entire world, and it just didn't work out?
I think it's more like a perversion of Jesus Christ, but you're on the right path. Yeah.
It comes down to what is America? No one knows. No one can define what America is. So do it for your country. What's your country? We can't even define what a freaking
it's a corporation.
No.
It's what's in the eyes of the beholder, to be honest with you.
And that's the problem. What I see is for the country, what you see for the country is two different things. So how can we agree to help a country? We have no idea what it even means.
And this is why I was starting this conversation talking about things like fascism and race. And I know we got River in the Hate as like the most far right commenter in the chat here. But there is a reason for the issue, because we're discovering, even on the panels that I have and even in what I follow on Twitter and all that, a lot of the other right-wing Black commentators, they're right-wing, or their conservatism stops at a racial sensitive issue.
Well, not only that, like
hold on.
Okay.
So what happens is that you have this question of like, so River of Hate says, rights are given by man, not God. White men have granted rights to Black men. If you look at a place like South Africa, it becomes almost stupidly obvious that if you ask the question, would the Black man grant the white man the same kind of rights? You know, the answer is hell no. And so now all these questions like fascism and right-wing theologies come into question, right-wing ideologies come into question now, because it's like, well, maybe we have been wrong about the last 75 years of history.
Go ahead,
Can we say 80? It can't add another 5 years to it. Can't make it even 80.
Fair enough. Take as much time as you want, but we have to rethink the past, is all I'm saying.
And I would say this, like, we've been kind of like we've been neglected and like and even speaking to each other and shit. Like we've all kind of been living under the illusion that like what was on the TV was consensus reality throughout, like the 90s and shit. Like we all believed that whatever we were seeing was actually what everybody was actually thinking and believing. But like ever since the internet came around and we started, you know, meeting each other and all these weird groups started forming and just like this is what it actually always was.
Well, it's also a layer of basically not understanding fundamental facts. Like, for example, has anybody slaughtered an animal in the last 30 days and ate from it? Like, we're so
I
desensitized
haven't even
from.
killed a fish in a couple of months. It's
But that's
true.
that's my whole point. We're so desensitized from where things start and end that we don't even know left from right now. There's no anchor. It's not like, okay, I know I have to have these basic skills or even know where things come from. Like if you
And
know the basics, we're
that's
so.
an important thing, Bandit, because there is a thing, right? Like, because I've been thinking about that too, right? Like, like the Native Americans and everything. Like, you you had to slay this animal to sustain your family, and it wasn't out of hate. This wasn't a one-off thing. This was a sacred thing for them. You know what I mean? Like this is nourishment. Like you had to sacrifice your life. And I had to pull you away from your family so I could feed mine. It was a sacred and thing that the hunter gatherers did here in North America, and here we have none of that. We're so disassociated that even going.
Well, it comes down to a simple.
Off.
We don't even like because we don't slaughter our own animals and because we don't raise animals and figure and put the time in and appreciate what's happening. You get stupid things like veganism because we're so desensitized from where things come from. If people understood where things come from, they would appreciate things more and we wouldn't have this mess. But then it spurs off into these wild crazy things like veganism or like we eat fish or whatever the case may be. We get all this bullshit.
You started to say Episcopalian. It's
I know, I
pescatarian.
stopped myself.
Yeah, it's funny you say that though, because I'm thinking
that's where we get all this bullshit from.
I'm thinking though to tie all that kind of to like what we've been talking about. It seems like liberalism has to exist on a set of falsehoods, whereas conservatism, whether it goes to an extreme or it's right or wrong, it kind of attempts to start on basic truths. Man, woman, somebody has to be in charge. We have to eat. We have to actually raise animals and stuff. Like basic truths are at the bedrock of things like conservatism, where it's like it seems with liberalism there's like falsehoods underneath it, like tabula rasa. We can all just be something if we try hard enough. Like, no, that's not really how it works.
It's the way you view life. That's what it really comes down to. Do you believe in structure, order, or do you believe in chaos? That's really what it comes down to. If you believe in order and chaos.
Nah, I think our biological like imperatives probably were a little bit too fine tuned, and like we're a little bit ahead of the curve. And I think people are just like waking up now instinctually. I think biologically too. Like I think everybody instinctually knows that there's something going on, and there's something and then people are just automatically just kind of having that knee jerk reaction at the same time because something feels that there's something in the air.
It's deeper than a biological reaction.
There is no getting around. Like you can't rationalize with them. You can't explain anything. They're just so.
No, it's not them. It's not just them. I'm saying that like there is a change of the energies in the air or like the feng shui, but there's something's completely just not normal. Ever since COVID, like something's just completely just been like people have been just.
It's deeper than biological. Like people are talking about this in the news, how like Gen Z males in particular are becoming more religious, Orthodox and Catholic and whatnot. And not to get all like Bible thumping and whatever, but again, it's deeper than the biological because there is no purely rational explanation for like why it's wrong to, have transgender story hour. There's no rational scientific explanation about that. But there are higher principles that extend beyond pure biological function that tell you how awful something like that is.
And
Look,
that's
I wish I was crazy, and then like, hey, like I would just be the crazy person that like, but I'm like, no, I see too. I like, I got OCD and ADHD, so like I see patterns in like weird places, but like I start seeing it, and then I start pointing it out to people, and they start seeing it too, and just like, like, oh man. I was like, no. I was like, don't tell me you see the same thing I see.
Any
This is bad.
person is going to want structure, and at some level, structure gives you some level of control of a situation at the minimum. So if you are trying to have structure in your life, you're going to want to understand what principles are, and that's going to go down the path of being a conservative at some level. Because if you have any bit of principle and you're going to want to understand fact over feelings, you're going to go down that path. If you care about feelings over facts, you're going to go down the liberal route. And the problem we're facing now, and Gen Z has been raised by liberals, and they want to go, this is bullshit. I see this as bullshit, and I'm going to change that. And that's why they're finding anything that gives you structure, and that starts with religion.
Let me run that to a logical conclusion here, and because I want to wrap this up too. We've kind of been going for a little while, but we're talking about conservatism, liberalism, and then fascism, the extreme boogeyman. And really it's right-wing fascism because, fascism is a relatively politically neutral concept. But if we're talking about
eugenics in the 1880s to about 1920 was a left-wing fascism.
Again, fine, but you can apply that same social pressure to a right-wing outcome, which is why when I think about fascism and the idea of a limiting principle, it would have to be something like a Christian nationalist fascism, right? Because you need a limiting principle, and I can't think of a better limiting principle than basic Christian moral structure.
What about Islamic?
We're Americans over here, bro. That's my only answer to that question. We're Americans. It's just not going to work. I'm not going to even try to theologically diss Islam at this point, but we're Americans. We're not going to do that.
I'm the same way. Like, I don't, Jews and Muslims, I'm like, hey, yeah, but like, in God we trust means one thing. And you know what that means.
And to the point though, this is literally why the integration of all these Somalis and various Muslim groups in America is only adding to the social dysfunction of America, which is only strengthening the arguments for guys like the Christian right and all the right-wing Christian nationalists and whatnot. Because if you really needed, if you had to choose between the mullahs and the priesthood, who are you really going to choose?
I'm choosing for them to join the fold, get into the fold. I don't know what the fuck they talk about. Like I'm saying, like I don't I'm Mexican, right? Like I don't tell people that I'm like, about Mexico. I'm like, no, like, yeah, those are my people. Like, yeah, but Mexico's Mexico. I never pledge allegiance to their flag. Like I've never been there. I don't know their laws. Like that isn't a place that I could go to. Like I know SVD was talking about like going to like all these different, like my parents left their country to come here. I ain't gonna leave to go somewhere else because I'm like, well, that would just be a waste.
But why?
Why? I'm like, I can't just be a coward like that. Like, no, I'm gonna have to die on this.
But why?
I'm gonna die on this hill.
You're leaving from here. Like
there is no. Where would I go?
No, it's a mentality. Like they're trying to convert where they were from into here instead of just taking what we have here and saying, like, why aren't we being like a line in the sand? You're either going to convert or that's it.
Look, I ain't no bitch, but I know what would be waiting for me somewhere else.
Well, America is, I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say we're the most civilized place. There are probably places like you can probably be safer in Japan than you can in Manhattan. You know what I mean? But the Western world invented modernity as far as everyone is concerned. And America is pretty much the leader of that. And I wouldn't want to trade that to live in pretty much any other place. I might want to go visit Japan
I'm used to
or
this
something like that.
chaos.
But I don't want to live over here. Yeah, exactly. I'm used to this.
But
comfortable with this chaos.
Japan's a good example, Hood. They have a strict culture. You either follow the culture or you're done. There is no let's bring American culture to Japan. If you live in Japan, you're following their rules and that's it. That's what needs to, and that would be a definition of cultural fascism. You either do what we say or
Japan fascist, by the way, even though we love that they have their culture and they try to maintain it against all the pressures of modernity. And Japan is suffering modernity too. They got immigrants and all the population.
Yeah, they have their issues, but
I wish them the best of luck. I know it's gonna. I know they're gonna eventually. They're gonna fall, but like I wish them the best of luck. I mean,
I want the samurais to come back again, man. We need more samurai.
Empires fall every day, B.
We need the samurais and the cowboys to ride again, bro. But anyway, I gotta end on that point. We gotta wrap this one up, man. Shout out to everybody for joining the discussion tonight.
all right, salute, man. Shout out to you for keeping it interesting and everything. So
Midwest, we're gonna put a filter on you one of these days, man. We're gonna keep you up here, but we gotta put a filter on that thing.
I'll try to keep it in check.
Nah, no doubt, man. But appreciate you guys for watching, man. Thank you for listening to the show. Hit that like button on your way out, guys. We've been talking about woke civil rights tonight, and I'll be back tomorrow with something else, man. You guys take care. Appreciate you. Hit that like button on your way out.
All right, peace out.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.